Welcome to The Call to Rise, the podcast for sacred rebels, visionaries, and conscious changemakers. Here we sit down with the people birthing the new earth, weaving ancient wisdom with modern strategy to build movements that heal, transform, and uplift our world. I'm Mackenzie Darling, your host, inviting you into honest conversations, practical tools, and hard-won wisdom to awaken your power and to inspire you to answer the call to rise and to meet this moment in history. Welcome, everyone. I am so excited to welcome Nina Hersher and the digital wellness expert of our time. Thank you so much, Nina, for showing up and giving these change makers and activists some of your knowledge right now. Really needed.
Thank you so much for having me, Mackenzie. It is such a pleasure to reconnect and be talking about this critical topic of how do we build movements? What does success looks like? How do we find joy in the process?
How do we find joy? Exactly. Let's bring some joy back into this work.
Let's.
Amazing. I'm going to be reading your bio really quickly, just so everyone's up to speed on your background and what you're up to. Nina Hersher is a globally recognized thought leader and highly sought after speaker at the intersection of technology and wellness. She holds an MSW specializing in digital culture and program development and is the founder of the Digital Resilience Lab, home of the Digital Resilience Certificate Program. This program equips educators and health professionals with actionable strategies to address screen-related health challenges like insomnia, burnout, and nervous system dysregulation. Hersher co-founded Annual Digital Wellness Day, a global initiative that has reached over 17 million people in 64 countries, and in 2024 featured participation from the U.S. Surgeon General. Hersher is the co-founder and chief learning officer of the Digital Wellness Institute, where she has played a key role in shaping the field. Her contributions include co-founding the Digital Flourishing Wheel and Approach, which led to the first scientifically validated survey measuring well-being in the digital era. She also spearheaded the development of the first nationally accredited certificate digital wellness educator program through an educational impact partnership with the Emmy Award-winning documentary, The Social Dilemma. I love reading people's bios, especially of movement makers, because I'm like, where do you find the time? I mean, that is just incredible. You are up to big things and so needed. So thank you again for saying yes. Really excited to have you on here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I want to start off, on your website, you said that connection is the heart of resilience, and you have a story that really brought you to the threshold of why you think digital wellness is so important. So can you share what brought you?
I would love to. Yes. So, digital wellness and how we are experiencing connection in our fast-paced world is a topic that's very personal for me. I grew up with a pretty severe stutter, and I was in immersive speech therapy since I was about 4 years old. For me, it was genetics. It's not necessarily for me when I'm nervous. It's more that my brain and my vocal folds are a little disconnected, so sometimes they'll just spasm. But I was essentially taught to almost sing my words because when you sing, you don't stutter, which is an amazing part of the brain. And so as you hear me talking today, you might hear me kind of connecting my words in a sing-songy voice a little bit more, but it also might be hard to notice because I've been doing it for so long. And so through that process, I really got to see, I think, how humans treat each other and how humans show up together. And when I got really blocked on a word, especially as a kid, I would use eye contact to let people know that I was trying to communicate with them. And as texting, as smartphones kind of became more prevalent, I realized that people wouldn't even know I was trying to talk to them because they were looking at their phones. And so that was kind of the event that led me to individualize a lot of my education on this topic and really look at how the shifting norms of connection are changing how we develop as human beings. And so my social work and counseling degree was individualized in that kind of digital culture and program development. And since graduating, I've been kind of going on to do a lot of the things that you shared in your bio. I've become a mom. I founded a trade collective, an institute, a lab, Digital Wellness Day. But I view all of these parts as very much an ecosystem, not just for me as the organizer, but for the people in the ecosystem, because we live in such an intense time that I think one of the things I can help people with is to really curate and distill all of the noise so that there is something more digestible to help us reclaim our vitality and our health and our peace of mind.
Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, your work is just, as I said, so incredibly needed right now. And I guess let's start with what is digital wellness? And can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing around that disconnect within technology and what are some of the symptoms?
I would love to. Yeah. So, the technical definition of digital wellness is the optimum state of well being that each individual using technology is capable of achieving. And so that, of course, spans so many different topics. With digital resilience, we're really talking about the ability to adapt to, maintain, and thrive in a world that's dominated by technology. And so with the Digital Wellness Institute, we published the Digital Flourishing Wheel, which is kind of tangential to digital resilience, except that digital flourishing refers to what is a way we can engage with tech so that it brings us all of the beautiful things like this call today, and we can avoid some of the associated harms like tech neck and FOMO. And so within that wheel, there are so many different subtopics from mental health to productivity to physical health. And I think it really depends for the person what's showing up, what is the event for them that's going to make them want to examine their tech habits. And so the classic example I give is, during COVID, people realized, oh, it's not just the darn kids, it's also us. We're either feeling the symptoms of digital overuse or we know someone. And also, just to name that sometimes this topic can be really heavy, Mackenzie, because for certain folks, their partners might be hooked on pornography. For other people, they may have known someone who was in a texting and driving accident. It's not always mental health or productivity. There are so many kind of layers. And so I would say that for the movers and the shakers and the hustlers, the most common motifs, the kind of cues and clues that tell us something's wrong is are the physical symptoms that show up first. So tech neck, having pain, realizing that you have sedentary syndrome or scoliosis, as we jokingly call it, and saying, you know what, something has to change for my physical body. But also on a connected note, noting if there are any emotional cues and clues, such as reactivity in person, but also in online forums, things that might really be showing us some of that digital burnout. And there actually is a free survey that folks can take at digitalflourishing.com that will tell them how they're doing in every category and give them some actionable tips at the end.
That's incredible. Yeah, I think that's a really, really great resource, and I will definitely make sure to include that in the show notes for people. I'm wondering, can you go and go a little deep into the digital flourishing framework that you have created around this?
Absolutely. So when we formed the Digital Wellness Institute with Amy Blankson, Tyler Rice, and Sophie Janik Bowles, we were really focused on that empowerment-oriented research-based framework because I'm sure most people are reading the news every day now. And even if you aren't, you see and you feel the fear. The fear in the news is very real for a lot of us. And one of the ways that's being shown up with the topic of digital wellness is attacks on tech companies and legislature. And there is a need for that. It's really helping. We are changing the ways that tech companies develop platforms and products for people that are more human centered. That's happening over time. And yet, there's still this narrative of, oh, you should be afraid. Oh, and so for us, the question became how can we turn all of the presenting problems that we've mapped, like insomnia, tech neck, so on and so forth, into empowerment oriented solutions? And so that's really what the flourishing wheel is. And the US does not clinically recognize technology addiction. Other
Mm.
countries do. And so this is really interesting. The US recognizes and gaming disorder. And I think one of the reasons is because it's so new, but also because this is a topic that's at the intersection of so many things. I think there will be a time when we don't need the word digital in front of the word wellness, but it's still that knowledge translation, that connective tissue of, okay, are we talking about an Aura ring or are we talking about our tech habits? Because there's so much language and so many people kind of trying to make their mark. And so that's why we created the Flourishing Framework. And it was very important to me that regardless of having paid products and courses, there was always something free. And that's where my social worker healer energy comes in. There should always be something free. And so the Digital Flourishing Survey, all of the toolkits for Digital Wellness Day, all of that is free. And anyone can kind of hold their own Digital Wellness Day activation in their home, at their workplace, any time of year. But under the guidance of Dr. Sophie Janik-Bowles, who's a PhD in positive media psychology, really cool field, and a professor at Chapman in California, she led the clinical validation of that survey instrument. And it took almost 5 years. And so now there is one version for adolescents and one version for adults that is actually a clinical survey tool that could be used right next to, for example, a survey tool on nomophobia, the fear of being without your phone. So for people who really want to go deeper, those are incredible resources that don't exist anywhere else in the world.
Incredible. I want to double click on tech addiction, especially for movement makers. How do you keep your own check and balance with the
My
technology that
own.
you use in your work that you're bringing forward?
That's such an excellent inquiry. I think this is always a tricky one because there's a certain amount of naming that has to go on around, yes, we're using tech to educate about healthy tech. There's no way around that unless you're coming to one of my in-person retreats, right? Like we're just going to be online together. And
Mhm.
so certain people, I think, are have different boundaries more naturally. And I was just talking to my brother-in-law about that because he's a 20 something and I'm a 30 something. And we were talking about how I think based on your age, your generation, also just how you came into the world, like some of us have a tougher shell than others. For some, it's created over time and we don't even want the tough shell. But these are the things where, for example, I was a CEO when I was 25. And so I think through that, I was conditioned to keep things moving as quickly as possible. And that's just a part of me. And so for me, it's about when I am plugged in, am I being the most productive I can be? And when I'm taking a break, is that break effectively recharging me? And
Mhm.
really leaning into things like time blocking, putting my phone in black and white, which anyone can do at any time. Like all of these little hacks and really like honoring these are my work hours and these are the hours that I'm off focusing on presence with my family, kind of living what I teach. But
Mhm.
also my team knows that if it's truly urgent, they can call me. And so we do a lot of communication charter work, and we like to say clear is kind. People don't know what your norms are unless you tell them. So I've played with all sorts of things. I put my time zone and my working hours in my email signature. I used to take every Tuesday for deep work, and people would say, "Oh my God, you can do that?" And I said, "Well, it depends on your job, but yes, you actually might be able to do that." Because one of the common complaints, right, is that we don't have enough time to actually get the work done that we're asked to execute. And so I think there's a lot of need to pause in present time and say, okay, is our schedule serving us in the way that we need it to, or do we need to make some changes?
Yeah, it sounds like there's just a lot of discernment, and I really like how you bring boundary work into the conversation because a lot of times when we think of boundaries, we think of external boundaries, but it's really we have to have internal boundaries with ourselves and also boundaries within the tech that we bring into organizations. And I also really like how you talk about on your website how it is up to the leader many times to be able to showcase what, digital wellness looks like. Can you talk a little bit about that? Before we go any further, I want to speak directly to the revolutionaries that are listening. The ones who know that their lives carry a deeper purpose of service in this moment. If you can feel that you weren't meant to simply succeed inside the old systems, but to help reshape what comes next, this invitation is for you. I've created the Movement Maker Archetype Quiz, a powerful tool that reveals one of 7 leadership archetypes emerging right now to guide us through this threshold moment in history. This isn't about personality. It's about discovering your unique leadership medicine, the role you're here to play in our collective transformation. You can take the quiz at quiz.globalmovementmaker.com. That's quiz.globalmovementmaker.com. If something in you knows this moment matters, start there.
Yes, I believe very strongly that culture change starts from the top. And so let's say that you're my boss and I never ever see you take a lunch break. I'm probably also not going to take a lunch break. If I see you say, hey, I'm going to turn all of my calls into 45-minute calls so that I have 15 minutes to decompress, to process the call, to eat something, to drink water, I'll say, great. But if you don't actually do it, then I'm going to feel like all of my calls should be hours too. And so I think whenever there's change, right, we have to actually see people in charge doing it because to an extent, we do live in quite a permission-based culture in society. And that's actually part of why I created Digital Wellness Day, because other than the new year, I wasn't seeing that there was a time that people felt comfortable saying, you know what, I'm going to change some of my tech habits and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so we find that it can be easier to do things in a collective, which is in a large part what movement building is all about.
And that's a great segue into I would love for you to talk a little bit about your amazing Digital Wellness Day. I think that's actually how we may have gotten connected,
So,
right?
yeah.
Because I was working for this nonprofit doing a character day. So, very similar movement building, creating a day around something to really dive into deeper discussions on things. So, yeah, why don't you tell our movers and shakers out there about Digital Wellness Day?
So, Digital Wellness Day is a holiday it's a global movement and holiday to really, I think, help people with those evidence-based resources to thrive in a connected world. And so, as we talked about the flourishing wheel, and I'm happy to send you a copy of that too, if you'd like to share. We created 2 toolkits. One is really for organizations, for people who want to hold something internally at their workplace, but the other is for parents, communities, people who want to maybe integrate some of this knowledge on a more personal level. And so Digital Wellness Day is the first Friday in May every year. So this May it is May 1st, 2026. It is purposefully designed to be held during Mental Health Awareness Month because as we just talked about, there's so many parts of this that are connected to mental health and can't really be separated. And I think that's part of why it's done so well, honestly. Like we placed it at a time when we knew that there would be a lot of existing complementary press and channel partners. And the way
Mhm.
that I think about life, and I'm going to get a little bit woo just for a second, is I
Love it.
think about life as this rushing river, right? And so the practice becomes not how can we create more current, but how can we know what places to tap in the river to harness the existing current, right? And we don't need to make electricity, but we do need to build a movement. And so that's part of how we chose May. And we usually run an annual summit. It has to date been online. We're hoping to hold one in person soon. But anyone can use the toolkit to hold their own event, either publicly or privately. And then we also put on our own event. So there's a little bit of something for everyone, but it's really fun to see the inquiries come in year round because it's not just HR, it's not just educators. Like we've reached 64 countries. It's just so interesting to see how people use this, the press that comes out. I think last year we had a lot of government organizations in the UK primarily using the toolkits to put on events and kind of share that out just because people are looking for, okay, what do I do? And I think especially with AI, people are feeling excited, but also inundated. And because the tools are changing, because we don't totally have a grasp on them yet, I don't think people have gotten the time back that they're looking for, but I do think that we're getting closer.
Incredible. Yeah, there's so much to chew on from all of that. First of all, I think it's interesting when you start out a global day like that. It was very similar to Character Day, where we like started out with really educators and had different schools having their own character day events, and it started like flourishing. And then we're like, wait a minute, we actually think that organizations need a lot of character development, and I think government could get involved. And so by the third year, we had grown that to US embassies around the world and the Department of Education. We went to the White House and almost got the Obamas to do a character day. Start off niche and then it starts growing. And I loved how you talked about the energy of the river of flow and kind of piggybacking on bigger movements and creating those coalitions. So I think that that's excellent. What are some words of advice that you would give some upcoming movement makers around creating a global movement like that? What are some of your biggest lessons learned?
Some of my biggest lessons are if it truly does not exist, create it and they will come, with the caveat if you have the right channel partners. I believe in energy exchange. I believe in reciprocity. I believe in generosity. And that's one of the ways that we made Digital Wellness Day possible very early on is we said, okay, let's just co-advertise. So I'll advertise your thing, you advertise this. And then you really, I think by creating toolkits to make people ambassadors, we obviously at this point can't talk to everyone who's interested. We have to just say, please look at the toolkit. Page 26 is great, but there is this energy of, okay, I feel confident enough to hold my own training. And so when you give people that, when you tell them that you're going to, reply to their posts, because again, healthy tech, not anti-tech, this is how we support our partners on that day. There's this energy of just lifting everyone up. And it's kind of like, oh, well, why wouldn't I be involved in this thing? And when you create the narrative, both on a human side and a marketing side, because this is the world that we live in, that tells people, hey, here's the topic, here's why it's urgent, here's why you should be involved, and you give people the actual time to plan for it, you'll be amazed by the energy and the voices and everything that kind of come together.
You're pointing to something really, I mean, that is movement making at its core, is that you act as the umbrella organization, but it's really a decentralized movement
Yeah.
where you're giving the power to the people. And what's really beautiful about that is those toolkits are the framework, but
Mhm.
then you're able to watch people's imagination and creation into what they create. And then what's really great is that user generated content and being able to build more reach and more awareness through social media campaigns built by people worldwide doing their own events just like that.
Precisely. You get it. And
Yeah.
in this kind of ecosystem of energy and engagement, seeing people's posts is also really helpful for us because it helps us know, okay, schools are going to talk about mental health primarily. Organizations are going to talk about productivity, but sometimes you see something that's totally out of the blue and it's a cue to us to focus on something slightly different for the year or add a page to the toolkit. And so we really try and integrate all of the feedback that we can to make each year stronger and better and as easy as possible for people to access.
I'm wondering, like Digital Wellness Day, in May will probably be the first year that will be the first year that AI is really dominant. And so, how do you look at how you can use AI within Digital Wellness Day? And also, what are some of the trainings and discussions that you think you'll be having around AI?
I think that right now, the primary interest that has been expressed to me is in how employers can really make sure that all of their employees are feeling equipped with the right tools that are also compliant with HIPAA, like with all of these different things that obviously vary a lot based on industry, and making sure that there are plans in place. And especially kind of deconstructing this blur between home as a place of leisure and home as a place of work for people who do work from home. And so I think, especially in the next year, we're going to see a few tools become even more normalized than they are now, but we're also going to see conversations about what is the digital wisdom that we can take from AI. And I've just begun to dig into all of the research on, okay, how is AI changing our brain. So for people who are using it every day, I can tell you that for me, just with GPT and Gemini and Perplexity and all of these tools, my typing is becoming sloppier and I'm
Mm,
using a lot more voice to text. And
mm,
so this is something, right, where I can pause and say, you know what? I don't really like that everything I'm writing has a typo, or I could just let the tech take over. But
mhm,
there, I think, is going to be a lot of consciousness around what parts of our humanity do we want to hold on to, and what are we okay with just kind of outsourcing and saying, you know what, it's okay if I can't write cursive anymore or I can't type perfectly. And knowing that these tools are also going to help a lot of people who maybe had those challenges before AI was even in the picture.
mhm,
And so that's kind of where I see the conversation going. But I'm actually holding a retreat at Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health with
mhm,
Caitlin Krause, who's amazing. And she does a lot of VR, digital wellness, and kind of futuristic work, I would say, at the intersection of AI, VR, and awe. And so we're
mhm,
going to be looking at awe and how we can all have more amazing experiences every day that bring us that feeling.
mhm.
So I'm interested even in that kind of in-person energetic container to see where the conversation goes.
That just sounds so rich, and awe is
Ah,
something that is just so powerful and not talked about and brought in enough. And also, I love that you're bringing it in IRL, in real life, right?
mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about that with a movement maker lens of there's this power of bringing us together online, but there's going to be this revolution of actually more in-person events and more tribalism, bringing more belonging and that feeling of awe back into our world.
I totally agree. And as someone with a 2-year-old, I actually wonder if we're going to see a big shift to more offline communities. And so if we think about someone choosing to go on vacation, even, right? I think there will be houses that are smart homes equipped with everything you could even think of. You can say, "Hey Siri, make me a coffee," and Siri will make you a coffee. But I think that there will also be houses like my house where we're in the woods and there's an 8-person sauna behind it. We don't even have a TV. We do watch episodes of things on our computers sometimes, but we travel so much and we decided to just consume our content differently and for now at least not have a TV. And so I think we're going to see even more of this where people are craving the kibbutz, the tribe, that feeling of being together in person. And yeah, we can't have it be tech free because even if there was a community like that, there would need to be some tech elements to help keep it running. But maybe there will be communities that don't really use AI as much. Or I think we'll see more of this kind of intentionality around people wanting to take a moment and
Yep.
fully unplug. And for me, there's a hot spring that's less than 2 hours, and I go and no one can reach me. There's no service. It's
Mhm.
spectacular. And I actually let my body rest. And so I think for all the movement builders out there, it's really about what is your ritual? What is your ritual for decompression? And so many people used to have a commute and don't have it anymore. That energy, that needing to decompress, it doesn't just go away. It shows up in our bodies, it shows up in our relationships. And so I've been wondering a lot about the routines that are most effective for people. And so my husband told me I could share with you that he was being a little angsty and moody at the end of his workday, and we both work from home. And
Mhm.
so I said, honey, why don't you take 20 minutes after your last meeting to do something tech free? Take a walk, do breath work, even listen to something, just don't watch, and just give your body like a moment because our commutes also offered us socialization, movement. Like there were so many other aspects of it than just driving to work. And I
Mhm.
think people forget that. And so we quit our commutes, and it might not be that much different than cigarettes. Like we need a replacement behavior. And so I think for movement builders, especially, if we don't have this in place, how can we show up for the people that we serve? And so that would really be my advice. as if they haven't created something to intentionally create it. And to also know that we're not going to unplug at 5 p.m. just to unplug at 5 p.m. There are seasons. Sometimes I want to work until 2 a.m. and I let myself, I'm just not going to email someone at 2 a.m. I'm going to send that email out at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. at a socially appropriate time where I'm not conditioning them to feel like they have to answer and then perpetuating that problem. So these are kind of some of the things that I've seen show up across industries and across all the hustlers out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all the hustlers, including myself, need to be doing all of this.
What is your wind down routine? I'm really curious, actually.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So, as part of my Movement Maker Incubator program, I'm going to get a little woo. The first module that I do is all around connection to source, because I really think that being connected to something larger than yourself actually helps you fuel your movement and keep you really connected to your sacred why. And so, I have people create an altar for their movement. So, they're in constant relationship with their divine calling. And so my ritual that I do every day is I go and I sit at that altar and I do a meditation to start my day off and to listen to any of the downloads of like what wants to be created that day and really get discerning around how I want to show up that day. And then at the end of the day, I go back to the altar and I light a candle and I say a prayer and then I end my day and then I close my computer. So that's one that is just every single day that I do. And then the other one is 2 years ago, I went through probably the hardest time of my entire life. I was let go from my job. I lost both of my parents. I was struggling from a chronic illness. Like everything that could have gone wrong could have gone wrong. And I just began walking. And it was like my soma knew instinctively that walking was actually the best way to work through grief, which I didn't know. But the coordination of walking is actually one of the like strongest things that you can do for nervous system regulation. So I went from like not walking at all to like religious 10,000 steps a day. So those have been my self-care through this time. And then I'm also going to Guatemala in a couple weeks and I'm going there for a month. And it's like, it's an interesting thing to do because I'm launching Movement Maker. And I'm like, oh, I'm right at the time of launch and I'm going for 3 weeks to sit by a lake and just slow my life down and just be in presence. And I think it's the most like integrated in tune with what I'm trying to build because I need to do that for myself. I need to really integrate that own embodiment and that slowing down and that self-care of my own to be able to, really be in presence with that within my own curriculum.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And I'm sorry to hear that you went through a challenging time, but look at you sharing your wisdom with people about it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's actually, I'll do a quick tangent, but losing both of my parents, one of the biggest things that happened through that is I went through an insane pilgrimage through ancestral healing and wisdom, which then became the bedrock of the Movement Maker Incubator program, realizing that so many movements are built based on ancestral healing. And you look really at the problem that we're in today is that we're not doing our ancestral healing work. So I think that that's just so important from a movement making standpoint.
I agree. I have so many things to say, but I'm also a journey dance teacher, and I don't know if you've ever done journey dance.
I haven't. And what is Journey Dance?
Journey
Talk.
dance, it's kind of like ecstatic dance, but different. It was created by a gal named Tony Bergens, and it is a chakra realignment therapy. I'm actually the youngest journey dance level 3 teacher. And so you begin and you end on the floor, and there are different songs with different types of beats and different movement cues, and you work your way kind of up the chakras. And it's so deeply clearing. And people have so many aha moments. And it's all about, there are a lot of different ways up the mountain, but it's how do you move the energy through? And that's just one of the ways. And so a movement cue example might be, okay, if your hand was in charge, where does your hand want to go, and just like letting yourself follow your hand and getting out of your head and into your body. And I have a theory, and we should find like a research project that can help fund this. But I think that one of the reasons EMDR is working so well for people right now is because we used to get it organically and it's not happening as much. And so I've been working with a lot of eye doctors. And when we're really close up to a screen, the eye contact is not natural. And we also don't blink as much, but we're also not looking side to side like we would do if we were taking a walk. And so I think that taking a walk in its own way is a form of EMDR.
Literally is. And that I found that out. That's exactly the reason why it's so regulating. Yeah.
It's incredible. So thank you for sharing that with this audience because I am in full agreement that whatever you can do to kind of process energy out of your body and move everything through is the right thing for you, is the right intervention, self-care practice. It's just about that kind of function, the input and the output.
I want to take a moment to invite you into something special called Alchemy, a 3-month one on one coaching journey for people who feel called to step into deeper servant leadership. In Alchemy, we weave together the insights of the Enneagram with the sacred container of plant medicine ceremonies so you can understand your patterns, release what no longer serves you, and rise as the leader that you're meant to be. If you've been feeling the pull to step into your gifts and serve from a place of clarity and integrity, I'd love to walk with you. You can learn more and apply at globalmovementmaker.com/alchemy. Again, it comes to that balance, right? You look at all the different spiritual traditions and it comes back to balance within, balance without, that masculine, feminine energy. Everything just feels so split right now. Like you were talking about, even the timelines are so interesting. It's the modern versus the ancient world. And you're seeing people that, as you said, half of the people will be in eco villages with no TVs, no AI, no nothing. And then there's going to be futurists with VR, like living in simulations. And how can we balance those two in a really beautiful and sacred way? You know, there's been an indigenous prophecy called the eagle and the condor. And this is the time where they have prophesized that modern and ancient world come together and build a completely different reality. And so we're here. And how do we do that? And so that's what's really exciting to have people like you come on this talk and tell us how to do that. I'm really, really excited for your work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that whenever, regardless of the topic, regardless of the movement that's being built, there's this kind of energy and there's this passion behind it always. And so it is about that knowledge translation work and making it as digestible and approachable so other people can jump in as possible. But when someone cares that much, it's also just about bringing intention to our attention and how we're showing up in communities, especially because people can feel that, and that is contagious in the best possible way.
I can feel throughout my bones as a movement maker that passion. It's so difficult to take yourself away from that passion and have that proper self-care when you're just so invested. And, you know, each movement maker believes that their movement is the solution. Like, okay, I found the elixir. Tell everyone,
My potion.
here's the potion. But any like final last words to movement makers of advice, lessons, rituals, whatever's feeling top of mind or top of heart for you?
I think my advice would be to really listen at the beginning. If you're thinking about launching something and you're at that point, to use that combination of intuition and logic. Do some validation and make sure that, this is something that people actually want, but also to not take too long, right? It's always about that balance because I've seen people work really hard on something for a year to launch it. And then by the time they actually launch, there is something else out there that's extremely similar, or the topic has changed so much and it didn't iterate with the times and it's no longer relevant for people. And so my advice would be to listen, to do a little bit of that energetic. The more you see, the less you say work until you really know what you want to say. And then to shout that from the rooftops with the most amazing channel partners, to look at the kind of timelines and ecosystems, see how you can give your project, your movement, the most voice, the most visibility, the most power, and then to go from there and to not be afraid to iterate and to try different things because our whole purpose, right, is to create things that serve humanity. And humanity is really good at telling us if this is helpful for them or not. And so I'm just kind of on this continuous individual journey of saying, you know what, this is great, but it needs to evolve into something else. The Digital Wellness Collective had to evolve into the Institute. We were going to create a holiday around unplugging. We realized it wasn't just about unplugging, it was about digital wellness. And that unplugging was actually limiting the way that people were thinking about this topic because it's great to come to a workshop with me. I love in-person events, but it's more important to give people the tools so when they go home, they can reintegrate into this fast-paced and connected world. And so I know that was a lot, but I think my
Yeah.
advice is to think about the intro and the outro of what you're creating and people's experience in that energetic container as much as
Mhm.
possible. And if you do that, they're almost guaranteed to not only have a great time, but to tell other people about it, which is how we build.
I love that you're pointing to allowing yourself to be flexible and to fail, because there's actually one thing that we can learn from Silicon Valley and from a lot of these tech people is fail fast, fail forward. Yeah. And then also the channel partnerships is huge. Can you give a little bit of advice around getting the right channel partners? And I know that, you talked about reciprocity there, which I teach a lot in my movement maker incubator because that's really important.
Yeah.
Any other pieces of advice that you would include?
I can certainly get a little more concrete with that. So for Digital Wellness Day, we have two tiers that we usually run. The first are in-kind sponsors, and that's exactly what it sounds like. And so if someone doesn't have the money, but they want to partner in other ways, then we can look at doing that. And then, of course, traditional sponsorship. But I think that especially when you're beginning something that's so new, right? You have to begin somewhere. It's and not or. And so finding and trusting the people that feel really high vitality, energy giving additive to you and being really clear around agreements. Who's going to post when? Are they going to send you the post, tag you? Just be really clear kind of about the energy because you only need a couple of things that are very genuine and well put together to go viral and for those things to be shared. And to what you said, I also struggle a little bit with this weird era of content creation because I was an educator. And so to me, like everything needs to be like a polished ebook or a type up. Like it just needs to be perfect, perfect, perfect. And now content creation is about, recording something, being genuine, being okay if it's not perfect, and people want to watch that. And so also, again, testing and not just assuming that it has to be like an hour long format or half an hour, or it has to be done with professional cameras because people can feel the energy in something. And so I think as long as those assets are designed correctly, when they're activated, people will kind of naturally come to that flame.
I completely agree. Everything really comes down to energy, right? I'm excited to see that authenticity is returning back and not really living in that perfectionism anymore. So, Nina, what are ways for people to get involved with all of the amazing things that you're doing and how to sign up for Digital Wellness Day and all of it?
All of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm holding two retreats on the bigger side that are public facing. One is at Kripalu. It's in April. It is called Awakening Awe. Kripalu is a few hours outside of Boston near the famous concert venue Tanglewood. And then I'm holding another retreat at Omega in October 2026, which is almost a year away, but this is how far we plan things.
Mhm.
And that will be based on digital detox and Chinese medicine and acupressure, and that link is not live yet, but it's going to be incredible. So Those are the retreats. You can learn more about my keynotes and workshops at ninahersher.com. The Digital Resilience Lab is digitalresiliencelab.com, and then digitalwellnessday.com is the place to download your free toolkits and start learning more, especially as we approach the new year and people are kind of looking for that factory reset, if you will.
You will. Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Nina, for all the incredible work that you're doing. I just can't wait to even see you flourish more. You are already on the precipice of ahead of your time with everything that you've built, and now the world just needs you more than ever. So please do follow Nina's work, and thank you so much again. And if there's any way that I can help and be of support for you, I am here. If you all liked this episode, please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you next week. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to The Call to Rise. If today's conversation stirred something in you, subscribe and share it with a fellow movement maker. And join our community at globalmovementmaker.com. Till next time, keep leading with courage, keep weaving ancient wisdom with modern strategy, and always remember to answer the call.